What's going on, everyone? Some pretty big news just came out of the Fed today, and this is involving the FedNow system that they've been trying to incorporate into the financial system ever since 2020. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. This is a new payment system and very relevant to the coming future months and even next year. FedNow. So the FedNow service, this white paper or PDF was written on August 17th, 2020, so basically a couple years ago. This is the implementation details on the Fed Reserve's planned instant payments service. So the FedNow service will facilitate end-to-end instant payment services for consumers and businesses, increase competition, and ensure equitable access to banks of all sizes nationwide. The Federal Reserve is uniquely positioned to build an instant payment infrastructure, given our long history of operating payment systems to promote a safe, efficient, and broadly accessible payment infrastructure. This was from Governor Lael Brainard, and let's go ahead and read this. So the Board of Governors of the Fed Reserve System announced details of its planned FedNow service on August 6th, 2020 in a release describing its core functionality and future implementation. If launched as described in the release, FedNow will be a real-time gross settlement payment system with integrated clearing functionality. It will offer 24/7, 365-day payment processing for every bank in the United States. And then in parentheses they have instant payments. The initial launch target date is 2023 or 2024. This release may mark the start of the next phase of implementation by the Fed and eligible participants. The initial launch will provide baseline functionality and help banks manage the transition to a 24 hours a day, 7-day a week, 365-day a year service. It will include a liquidity management tool known as the FedNow LMT so that FedNow participants can transfer funds between accounts at the Federal Reserve banks to meet the liquidity needs associated with instant payments. Now, the Fed stated that it will take a phased approach to implementation, including pilot programs providing additional features and functionality over time. Now, some key features involving this service. Number one, it's domestic only. It will the FedNow will initially will only support U.S. domestic payments in U.S. dollars. The Fed stated that it will continue to evaluate the costs and benefits of expanding FedNow to allow for cross-border payments, taking account of the regulatory and operational considerations of doing so, and the need for cooperation with international operators. Funds available in seconds. FedNow will be designed to process and settle payments within seconds, from the time a sender initiates a payment until the time the funds become available in the receiver's account. Banks must agree to make funds available to their customers in near real time after receiving notification of settlement. The Fed will request public comment if it identifies any changes to its regulations that are necessary to clarify funds availability. Settlement finality in seconds. So you have funds available in seconds, and you also have settlement finality in seconds. The settlement entries for all FedNow transactions will be final, i.e. unconditional and irrevocable. Banks must still implement procedures to resolve erroneous payments, which erroneous just means error, payments with errors, such as though new transactions initiated by a request for return. Another key feature is credit transfers or push only. FedNow will operate through credit transfers in which each payment is initiated by the sender to its intended receiver. It will not support debit transfers, in which the receiver initiates a transfer that debits or pulls funds from the sender's account. FedNow will, however, provide non-value message types, such as request for payment, to enable a wider variety of transactions. The Fed believes that, at least for the initial launch, the risks of supporting debt transfers, which have higher fraud rates, outweigh the potential benefits. There's also access through FedLine Network. Participating banks will access the FedNow service through the FedLine Network, which is a set of electronic connection products that more than 10,000 banks use to access the Fed's payment and information services. FedLine will be enhanced to support the FedNow services 24/7 by 365 processing. Banks will need to test and deploy enhanced or upgraded FedLine components to enable the FedNow service. Also, full participation is not required. A bank may choose to enroll in FedNow as a receive-only participant, designate a service provider to process payments on its behalf, or settle payments through the master account of a correspondent bank. Holy shit. And then we have APIs as well. Okay, so I'm going to explain this one real quick. An API is a type of software technology that enables computer systems or applications to connect to each other, allowing information to be shared across the systems. The Fed recognizes that APIs facilitate value-added end-user services and provide useful tools, such as providing real-time service status updates, providing downloadable information like message specifications as part of automated services, or even initiating and receiving transactions. I can't wait for Weeble's API, man. Now, the Fed stated that it will continue to engage with industry stakeholders and explore how best to support APIs in the FedNow service. And then here's some more key features. This involves liquidity, credit, and the FedNow LMT. Because FedNow is an RTGS system, banks will need to manage the liquidity needs associated with instant payments as well as to satisfy reserve requirements. Reserve banks currently provide liquidity through the FedWire Fund service in the form of intraday credit, also known as daylight overdrafts, a term that may become an word in a world of 24/7/365 instant payments. A bank that faced an unexpected outflow of payments could experience a depletion of its master account balance. Without access to intraday credit, as currently happens when the FedWire Fund service is closed, a bank in this situation could have its payments rejected by the FedNow service to the detriment of that bank and its customers. To support FedNow's smooth functioning, the reserve banks will provide access to, again, 24/7/365 intraday credit. Jeez Louise. This intraday credit will be available on the same terms and conditions as for other Fed services, and the Fed will propose specific changes to its payment system risk policy. Banks will still need to manage their master accounts in compliance with Fed policies, including the requirement to avoid negative balances at the close of each business day, so as to avoid overnight overdrafts. If a bank has a negative balance at the end of the business day, it will be charged an overnight overdraft penalty for 24 hours, regardless of how quickly the overdraft is cured. Certain banks may need to adjust their internal account monitoring practices to manage intraday liquidity needs. FedNow LMT will be a core feature of FedNow, enabling participants to transfer funds between their reserve bank accounts, including banks' own master accounts and the RTP joint accounts, to support liquidity needs related to FedNow payment activity. Use of FedNow LMT will be available to those who are not full FedNow participants. The Fed anticipates imposing controls on the FedNow LMT to ensure that its use is limited to liquidity transfers in support of instant payments. Such controls will include transaction value limits or limits on the hours of the functionality. The Fed considered but rejected requests to extend discount window hours, which will continue to be available until the closing of the FedWire Funds transfer system on Monday through Friday under the same terms as currently, but noted this view might change over time. So dropping small hints at the repo here, basically, right? So now we're going to look at the speech given today by the governor here, by Vice Chair Bernard. I'm pleased to join the FedNow Early Adopter Workshop with the technical testing phase of the FedNow service kicking off in mid-September, which is coming up. I want to particularly thank the early adopters for the important investments they are making to prepare for the day when the FedNow service goes live next year. Together with our partners, we will be ready to launch the FedNow service between May and July of 2023, bringing this innovative core instant payment infrastructure to financial institutions of every size across America. We have been working hard to deliver on time, but ultimately the number of American businesses and households that are able to access instant payments will depend on financial services providers making the necessary investments to upgrade our payments infrastructure. Together, we can ensure that all Americans have access to a modern and reliable instant payment system. The payment system is a critical part of America's infrastructure that touches everyone. Americans rely on the payment system all day, every day, to make purchases, pay bills, and get paid, without ever needing to consider the complex infrastructure that is operating under the hood. American households and businesses want and deserve payment transactions that work seamlessly, reliably, and efficiently. Fostering a safe, efficient, and widely accessible payments infrastructure has been a central part of the Fed's mission since the very beginning. The Federal Reserve banks all around the country have provided payment and settlement services alongside the private sector for more than 100 years. Well, no shit. Over that period, we have repeatedly innovated and invested in collaboration with the private sector to transform the payment system using the latest technology to better meet the needs of businesses and households. Now, after extensive industry engagement and planning, the Fed Reserve is on track to deliver the FedNow service by May to July of 2023. Now, apparently, the FedNow service will transform the way everyday payments are made throughout the economy, bringing substantial gains to households and businesses throughout the ability to send instant payments at any time on any day, and the funds being immediately available to recipients to make other payments or manage the cash flow efficiently. Immediate availability of funds could be especially important for households managing their finances paycheck to paycheck or small businesses with cash flow constraints. Having the capacity to manage money in real time could help households avoid costly late payment fees or free up working capital for small businesses to finance growth. Indeed, during the pandemic, we witnessed how essential rapid access to funds can be, as many households started spending emergency relief payments on the day they were received. So I'm not going to read the rest of this, just letting you know that there is big shit in the works here. Now compare this and combine it with the F2 merger that's coming up. Obviously, new payment systems is the focus of a lot of this that's going on, and now that you have this from the Fed confirming the release in 2023, holy shit. Let's go, Brandon.